So you've just finished the first draft of a novel. It took you months, or years, or maybe decades? Now what? Stay tuned for my 5 tips for revising a first draft. Welcome to Writing Mastery with Jessica Brody. These videos feature tips, tools, and techniques to take your writing and your writing career to the next level. So you've finished a novel. Congratulations! Trust me when I say that's the hardest part. But now you're exhausted. You have a pile of pages that may or may not make any sense. What do? Well, first, before you do anything else, I suggest you take a much-needed break. You deserve it. And not only that, I find that waiting at least 2 weeks between first draft and revision gives my brain a chance to marinate in what I've written, process, think. You may come up with ideas in those 2 weeks, which you should definitely write down. But if possible, I recommend waiting at least 2 weeks before you actually start revising anything. And after that, it's time to revise what you have. It's time to take that first draft and turn it into a pretty, polished final draft. And that's when these 5 tips might come in handy. Number 1. Create a revision plan. The last thing I suggest doing is just opening up your document, starting on page 1, and just revising. It'll feel daunting and overwhelming, and you'll eventually stall out. First things first, get organized. Take some time to review what you have and create a revision plan. That includes creating revision to-do lists, taking notes, and creating an outline of your novel as a whole. For example, an outline of what the story looks like now, and an outline of what you want the story to look like when you're finished revising. I know we're all just eager to jump in and start, but trust me, taking a moment to sit down and work out a plan first will save you lots of time in the long run, and will keep you motivated and focused when you get into the thick of it. Here's a bonus tip. For keeping track of my revision to-do lists, I love using Trello. It's a completely free tool that I will link to below. 2. Tackle your revision in passes. Once you have a to-do list and a revision plan, I recommend breaking your revision list into categories and tackling your revision in multiple passes, meaning multiple times going through the manuscript and fixing specific things that relate only to that topic of your current pass. For example, maybe you know that the world building of your story needs work. Create a world building category and segment all your world building items from your to-do list into this category. Then do a world building pass, where all you focus on is improving the world building and implementing those revision tasks. Or maybe you know your structure needs work. So segment out the structure related tasks and do a structure pass. For help with structure, I recommend following a structure or storytelling template like Save the Cat. Feel free to check out my book, Save the Cat Writes a Novel, for more information about that, or download my free Save the Cat Starter Kit to get started using the method to help you revise and perfect your story structure. I'll link to the starter kit below. Doing your revision in stages or passes will help the process feel less daunting and overwhelming, and will help keep you focused on solving one problem area at a time, which will not only keep you more sane, but will also help keep you on track. Also, when implementing multiple passes of revisions, I recommend starting with the most difficult and/or time-consuming category first, the one that's going to require the most work and rearranging of the story elements, and then the second most difficult category, and so on and so forth. That way, as you move through the categories, the revisions not only get easier, hurrah, but the manuscript gets more solid and complete. Like, for example, if you have a lot of structural changes to make to your novel that are going to require that scenes get moved around a lot, start with that pass first to get the scenes and chapters more set and in order before you start tinkering with the smaller fixes. Number 3, put every scene or chapter through the lift-out test. What is the lift-out test? It basically means if you can lift the scene or chapter out of your manuscript without having to do a lot of revision work or restructuring to fix what's left behind, then chances are the scene or chapter wasn't that crucial to begin with and doesn't need to stay in your manuscript. A scene or chapter is only worth keeping in your story if it somehow ties other plot points together in the manuscript. Maybe it sets something up or pays something off, or tells us something crucial about the character that we don't get in any other scene. If you can lift the scene out easily and not create a vortex of plot problems in its wake, it probably wasn't essential, and you can just cut it. Or revise the scene to ensure that it is essential to the rest of the plot and does deserve to stay. Number 4, make sure every scene has a goal and a conflict. Another great way to make sure every scene in your novel is riveting and important and impactful and keeps the story moving at a brisk, engaging pace is to craft every scene of your novel with a goal and a conflict. Meaning, what does the character want to get out of this scene? What's their purpose in the scene? If they don't have a goal, give them one. If you can't figure out what the goal is, cut the scene. It probably doesn't drive the plot forward. But keep in mind, scene-level goals don't have to be big and epic and high stakes. They can be as simple and small as the character wants a cup of coffee. But there must always be a conflict to that goal, something keeping the character from achieving it. Like maybe the character enters the break room to get a cup of coffee, but the coworker who always talks their ear off is standing in front of the coffee machine, and now they're going to be trapped in an endless conversation and miss their work deadline. Now, doesn't that make for a much more interesting scene than a character who just enters the break room, gets a cup of coffee, and leaves? And finally, number 5, don't revise, retype. This last tip is a great hack that really tricks your brain into revising better, smarter, and more efficiently. So you have a scene that needs a lot of work, but maybe there are parts of the scene that you really like and you don't want to cut. Instead of trying to revise around those parts that you like, cut the scene entirely out of your manuscript and paste it into a separate document. Then position the two documents side by side on your screen and start actually rewriting the scene in the manuscript, like from scratch. That's right, start over. Now, here's the rule. You can keep anything you want from the scene, but you cannot just cut and paste it back in. You have to physically retype it. Here's what this little trick accomplishes. 1, the act of typing puts you back into a more creative mindset and will facilitate coming up with brilliant new ideas for the scene that you might not have come up with if you were just trying to revise sentence by sentence. You are literally rewriting something rather than trying to revise around it. And 2, it prevents you from being lazy and keeping things just because it's easier than rewriting them. When you have to manually retype something, it forces you to really decide whether or not the sentence or paragraph deserves to stay. Is it really worth all that effort of typing it out again? Or maybe can it be written in a better way or simply cut altogether? So there you have it, my 5 tips for revising your first draft. If you want more writing tips, don't forget to subscribe to my Writing Mastery newsletter. I'll link that down below, as well as a link to my online writing courses. If you'd like to see more writing videos from me, be sure to thumbs up this video to let me know. And if there's a specific question or topic you'd like me to talk about in a future video, be sure to leave it in the comments. Happy writing and revising!